Hi everyone, so earlier today I tried Twisting Blades, something that a lot of people have been waiting for throughout Season 4. A lot of people consider it pretty weak on the Maxwell tier list, for the pit at least. We also have it ranked pretty low down in C tier. In fact, I've already played Twisting Blades earlier in the season. That was actually like 2-3 weeks ago or something, quite early on, where I basically just went with the Maxwell build that we have there, and I tried to min-max it further, see how it goes, but ultimately, it is just not really that crazy these days. You can still play the good old poison Twisting Blades, and it kind of works. You can farm, the higher pits, up to like 60, 70, 80, even if you're like really min-maxed and you don't mind going a bit slower than other builds. But it is definitely more of a struggle than some of the top dogs like Heartseeker, Andariel's Rogue, Rapid Fire, and so on. So those builds are just better, basically, especially when it comes to the pit. That being said, Twisting Blades is still a formidable leveling build, and speed farming in Hell Tides, for example, I've done that and that worked great. However, after this experiment, I kind of let it rest for a while until I had a very strange idea the other day that I want to share with you in this video. What is this actually about? And that is, I thought I found a genius way to actually make Twisting Blades real good. And it will go the same way that some of the other builds are going right now, which is victimize. So victimize Twisting Blades. That sounds very strange. Usually this is played with close quarters combat key passive. So if you look at this here, this is the traditional melee rogue key passive here that we have been playing in the past for Twisting Blades. But these days, victimize is all the rage. We have Heartseeker Rogue, we have Pencher Rogue. It is very strong. And the base lucky hit chance on Twisting Blades is actually not really that bad if you look at it. I have a bunch of lucky hit bonuses right now, but here it shows 48%. In the planner, it is actually 33%. And that is something to work with when it comes to victimize. In order to make victimize useful for a skill, you need to have a high lucky hit chance per hit. And Twisting Blades kind of qualifies for that. We have 50% on Heartseeker, we have 50% going up to 80 or even 90 with Penshot. So those skills have a bit of an advantage, but Twisting Blades is kind of in the same ballpark when it comes to this, compared to, for example, Barrage that has half of Twisting Blades, so it's even worse than that. Same with the Rapid Fire, even worse for the Flurry. So there's not really many options to even consider making a victimized build function. And I thought maybe you can try this with Twisting Blades. Now, before I dived into this, I was also thinking about what other synergies could I make work with this setup here. And it's kind of obvious when you look at the tempers for Twisting Blades, we don't really have anything that really matters. The Twisting Blades temper is awful. It makes the Twisting Blades return a little bit faster, so it does effectively nothing. Compared to, stuff like Heartseeker has a 100% chance to cast twice if you masterwork just very slightly. So that is obviously not really in the same galaxy when it comes to how much power you can gain from those tempers, which is part of the reason why melee rogues are so down bad right now. I actually made a video talking about the problems of rogue as a whole, and this was a big part of that. Now, without going too much into detail, tempers suck for Twisting Blades, but we have another solution, which is Caltrops Duration. And this is something that other builds are also using. Heartseeker Rogues in particular, they put this on both their melee weapons usually, or vice versa, they can put it on their crossbow and then have the chance to cast Heartseeker twice on the melee weapons. So either way it works. And Caltrops Duration is really powerful because Caltrops has been buffed in the past to give you a stacking damage buff. The longer the Caltrops are up, the more you get of a damage buff. This is also something I mentioned in that video. And you can see here right now, if you have a bit of Caltrops Duration, this damage buff can go very high, 136% on this enhanced Caltrops here. Usually this only goes to like 45%, but because it lasts so long, you get 5% every second, and you see here, lasts 25 seconds. So in particular for those long pit boss fights that really hold back a lot of builds, this is the solution for basically any rogue build right now. And some rogue builds can go for a lot of Caltrops Duration, and some can't. And Twisting Blades would certainly be one of them. You can really make use of this because you don't really want to temper anything else. There's nothing else that really does anything. And the good thing is you can even masterwork this stuff. So let's say you put like 1 crit on all of this and we do that here, then this 130% buff goes to 152%, 28 seconds. And if you want to go real ham, you can go the triple masterwork, perfect Caltrops Duration. You can get 400% bonus Caltrops Duration for 35 seconds. giving you 184% damage buff if you really go ham. Now, this is somewhat unrealistic. This is plan and gear, but you know, something like that is quite doable. Like, you know, getting 2 crits on a good roll is very achievable, and that still gives you a pretty major buff of 168%. Now, if you go by that number, we know that this double dips for victimize currently, so that will be fixed eventually because there are some modifiers that just apply twice in the damage calculation, which shouldn't be the case, but this is how the game works currently. So I figured, yeah, we can combine Twisting Blades and victimize, and then this insane Caltrops multiplier. And this is the biggest multiplier that you have in the build. And if you take this 168% buff together with the base value, well, we have a 2.68% multiplier that multiplies with itself thanks to the victimize double dip bug. So we're looking at a multiplier of over ×7 your damage if you have Caltrops fully stacked with those tempers, and that's quite a lot of damage. So I figured, yeah, we can maybe make something work here with victimize and try to make use of this relatively high lucky hit that Twisting Blades has, similar to how Heartseeker functions. Now, there comes a problem with this, and this is probably the main reason why no one has really done this before or tried it really. Like, I've not heard of anyone trying this even in the first place. And that is that there was a stealth nerf to lucky hit in this patch when it comes to Twisting Blades. So in the past, we used to play, for example, with bursting venoms to try to get those poison puddles all the time. And lucky hit was really high on Twisting Blades because we had the Blade Dancer aspect. And what Blade Dancer does is it adds 2 spinny, like actually 1 blade that spins 2 times around you. So the spinny blade hits 2 more times from the returning blade base damage and then does a percentage of that to the enemy. And those spinning blades would also carry lucky hit. So you would normally get 33% lucky hit on the original hit on the main target, then you will get 33% lucky hit on the returning blade and anything that is hit by that, and then you will get 2 spins on that also carry 33% lucky hit. In fact, in the past this used to be bugged, and Blade Dancer most of the time give you 3 extra hits, so you had a lot of lucky hit on this skill, in total at least. And still, the lucky hit per hit is not terrible. However, with the start of Season 4, there was a stealth nerf to this, apparently, that Blizzard did, that was not in the patch notes, that reduced the lucky hit chance of those extra hits. And the way that I have been told about this was that this only applies when you have the Blade Dancer aspect. So this is what you saw here at the intro, where I was actually testing this. So I wrote down the numbers of the procs, so you can see this here. The first number is, I was counting victimize procs. First number is victimize proc on the original hit. The second number is the victimize proc on the return of the blade. And the third number is the amount of attacks I have done. So in this case, 5 victimize procs on the first, second on the return, and 19 total attempts. So this is kind of what I was testing here to see if this is actually true. So the idea was that if this lucky hit nerf is only in place with the Blade Dancer aspect, then why don't I just not play Blade Dancer aspect and we play a back to the roots, traditional, like returning blades only, no spinny blades, twisting blade stroke basically. So that was the idea here. So you see this here right now, for example, where I was testing on a target dummy and I just tried out to see if that lucky hit chance was actually working as expected without the Blade Dancer aspect. So this is what I learned. And unfortunately, it turns out that if you do this test, I got a pretty expected value of roughly a 1 in 4 for my victimized procs, which kind of checks out of the math. So in this case, I had 48% chance with lucky hit for my twisting blades, and victimize has a 50% chance. So we take this times 0.5. So roughly a quarter of the time I would get a victimize pop. And well, if you look at the numbers here that I'm posting, you see it kind of goes up like that. So I have 10 victimized procs on the first hit, 42 attempts. So that's roughly a quarter. And I did this again with another round of testing and I had roughly a quarter again. But you see here the middle number, those were the victimized procs that I got from the returning blade, and they were massively lower. So you see this here in the final test of like a set of 50 attacks. It was only 2 procs out of 50 attempts from the returning blade, and that was without the Blade Dancer aspect. So the conclusion at the end was that this lucky hit nerf was in fact in place even without the blade dancer aspect being present. So they just straight up just nerfed the returning blades aspect. So I either misunderstood something when that was told to me, or maybe someone who tested that on the PTR. I'm not actually sure who tested it. I just heard about this and I wanted to go and try it. And here we are. So it turns out the lucky hit is massively nerfed on the returning blades, including the spinning blades. So adding blade dancer or not did not actually make a difference. So I tried this again and I wrote down a lot of more numbers once I did that test. And basically here we had a set of 5 numbers where we had the first hit and then the return and then the spin hit 1, spin hit 2, and then the total number of attempts. So that's basically this number that I was writing down here. And it turns out that in a set of 50 attempts, so we were here, we got 6 procs on the first hit, 5 on the return, 1 on the first spin, 3 on the second spin, out of 50 attempts. So that basically tells me all I need to know. Like, you just don't proc victimize. That's basically the conclusion. And the dream was dead, unfortunately. So I thought I had a really great idea playing this victimize, returning blades, no blade dancer setup with those insane caltrops, because it will kind of just synergize so well. There's no tempers that you lose for this counter duration. You get this massive damage multiplier from the double dip. And then you have like this cool play style as well. Without the spinning blades, you have to try to rely on the returning blades. This is something that I had really been looking forward to try to make a build around at some point, whenever maybe we get an option to just not run that aspect. Not that I hate blade dancers aspect, the spinning blades, but I'd really love to see a build for twisting blades that is really based on the returning blades more than the spin. But unfortunately, it doesn't really check out. So the lucky hit nerf is real, and it's under all circumstances. So victimize with twisting blades just does not work. I'm not sure why Blizzard actually really nerfed this. This was undocumented. So in the past, this used to carry the full lucky hit, and now it no longer does, which also carries some other problems for twisting blades. For example, for real twisting blades builds, you run siphoning strikes, and siphoning strikes is also a lucky hit effect. So you rely on this for healing, and you get less healing now for your twisting blades, for example. And likewise, for example, if you play with bursting venoms. Now you can make a poison rogue build work with just the poison imbue count temper, so they can these days put on your rings. So we have an example here, this one for example, the cold imbue count. So you can do the same with poison imbue. So you don't have to rely on bursting venoms. And in fact, in my Maxwell build guide, I actually do not do that in a late game, because, well, we have this lucky hit problem, and it's actually much harder than in the past to trigger stuff like bursting venoms and whatever else you may want to trigger. Chance to freeze, chance to stun, and so on. So there is definitely a huge issue here. Now, I do agree that the lucky hit maybe was a bit crazy when it comes to twisting blades, but it is also a bit sad because stuff like victimize, twisting blades can just never be played. This is like a general problem with the key passive, for example, that just so heavily relies on a high lucky hit chance of the skill per hit, and not in a high lucky hit chance total, or just a flat chance to trigger, because, well, this K passive already scales with the damage of the skill or the DPS of the skill. Why does it also scale with a second factor? I don't really get it, but this is how it works. Either way, failed experiment, and I kind of wanted to share this. And I guess for a lot of people that are asking, like, where's twisting blades? Why is it not played? Why is it not good? Well, here is one of the reasons, at least, why it's kind of down in the gutter right now. There are more reasons, of course, because melee rogues just don't really have the same power. We have the problems with the temperers, we have the problems with the key passive, and the other key passive as well. We don't really have, like, let's say, even a precision kind of level key passive. We have close quarters combat, which is just nowhere close to what precision does. So there are these kind of issues here that maybe Blizzard will address in the future. But this is what I got here for Twisting Blades. I am still planning to actually make an updated video about it, because I keep getting a lot of questions like, what's up with Twisting Blades? And as I mentioned earlier in the video, it is formidable for leveling and farming easy content, at least. So like the good old like shadow twisting blades, you know, jumping around with dash and shadow step, that still works pretty well. I actually did a fairly fast run 1 to 100 with twisting blades with my rogue, but you don't really want to step into the pit no matter what. So that's my conclusion here and the takeaway. Hope you enjoyed my little insights here, and let me know what you think. Maybe any cool solutions that you would have as well for what Blizzard could do with melee rogues or twisting blades or anything. So maybe you can also collect some feedback and see what I do. For now, hope you like this, and see you guys next time.